It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. The show started a long time ago. I don't know where you guys have been. Gary, welcome to Thursday. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, I was thinking that the inflation numbers are going to come out today, and it won't matter what they are.
It could be 10.5, and everybody go, yeah, okay, fine.
Well,
it won't be, but
well, just because the entire news media is there's nothing except the Biden story.
Yeah, I don't even know if CNBC will be covering the inflation numbers. Oh yeah, the inflation numbers. What were those this morning, yesterday, last week? There is nothing else going on. There is no other story.
The funniest thing I read today, Steve Krakauer writes for The Hill. I think he works with, Megyn Kelly and stuff like that. But this is just, I read it to you. There's an audio cut in there. I'll play it later. But, I want to just read what he wrote. Today's the day the Biden debate debacle saga actually broke the very foundation of how the media and political establishment operate. It broke the fourth wall, a glitch in the matrix, an existential crisis. Here are three examples. Reporter finishes a live hit with a Biden statement about George Clooney, tosses it back to Jake Tapper, and he's like, wait, what does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. Then he tosses it to a pundit to give her take, and she just goes, this is not good. This is bad. Reporter catches up with Pelosi in the hallway for one of those normal impromptu Q&As, and Pelosi questions the whole concept entirely. Am I speaking English to you? I'm not going to be making any statements about any of that right now in the hallway. And then the reporter, they have her tweet that says, Speaker Pelosi tells me Biden can win, but she says she won't make comments in the hallway about the fate of our nation. Ezra Klein, a Democrat, says Democrat lawmakers are telling him off the record that actually Donald Trump is not an existential crisis or threat to democracy. It's just something they say. Another term of Trump would not be as bad as telling Biden to step aside as the nominee. When I was reading the Ezra Klein yesterday, I'm like, wow. And
that was telling.
Right. Then Steve writes, it's all hilarious and instructive and refreshing in a way. Everyone in the media and political establishment is just in the total F-it mode currently, which is fun and different, but it doesn't exactly inspire confidence since it exposes the entire system, or the whole system was a facade before.
Look, the whole Ezra Klein thing, by the way, is kind of what I've been saying. Democrats now are looking at it going, I can live with Trump winning. They can't live with the implosion, but they shape it up to be, because there's no way, unless Biden is convinced, and we'll see what happens with the meeting with his advisors and some of the Senate Democrats on Thursday. What's that going to look like? Because the story came out after it broke. Then it came out and shaped up to be, well, this isn't the advisors going to the senators telling them to get in line. It's for the senators to give them feedback. And I thought, to what end? Until Biden decides.
Or Hunter decides.
Exactly. He's still a Biden, yes. Until one of the Bidens decides.
To see Karl Rove write that in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, that Hunter is the de facto chief of staff, I was like, wow.
Yeah. No, and I think we all saw that.
Right. Because when that was said a couple of days ago, it's like, it's just another Republican conspiracy theory. But the fact is, we know from the reporting from the liberal media that it's not.
He's controlling everything.
Right. And that's the whole point. Well, it's just right wing. The liberal media is writing about it.
Yes. Right. But and that's it. You have Hunter with that's basically glued to his father right now, and Jill and her inside guy, I forget his name, that's been there for years. He's been there for like 15 years as an insider with Jill Biden, and those two are basically controlling everything.
Here's just so you have the Ezra Klein back and forth. This was on a podcast, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Some guy by the name of Tim Miller. So Ezra Klein, you don't know how the party can replace him. You don't want to be blamed for any of this. You just stay quiet and walk the calm path to defeat.
Yeah.
I think it's clear people are weighing this set of things like it would be quite unpleasant for me personally to come out against the president as an elected official in the Democratic Party and weighing what will happen if Donald Trump wins and saying in a revealed preference way, I can live with Donald Trump winning. And I've had people say that to me off the record, to be fair. And then the host, really? Then back to Ezra Klein. I've had top Democrats say to me basically something like, I don't know why all these Democrats who think Donald Trump is a existential threat to democracy are acting the way they are. But the reason I'm acting that way, is because I don't think that. Then the host says, who the F is that? Out your sources, Ezra. I'm about to be in leaking text mode over here myself. This is crazy. It's maddening. No, Ezra Klein, I find it maddening, but I do find it consistent. Look, you can say this is true in a lot of things, right? It's a charge Republicans always throw at liberals, which is that if they really believe climate change is such a problem, they wouldn't fly on planes. And I think that people's ends are less connected than this.
Mm-hmm. But the problem is, here's the problem. You might have a number of Democrats who are saying, all right, I can live with a Trump win. But I want to know if those Democrats, I'm with Tim Miller here, out your sources, because I want to know if Democrats are saying this that are in safe districts or states. If they're not on the down ballot, if they're not in danger on the down ballot, then they may not care. Well, we'll just live with it. The problem is all the other Democrats who know they may get trounced as a result of a massive landslide if that were to happen, don't hold the same opinion. That's why you have right now this chaos. Because the ones that are directly affected, and of course, Schumer, he would lose his seat as Senate Majority Leader. And you've got a number of them. Schumer kind of seems all over the place. The story that got out yesterday that behind the scenes, he indicated he was open to having somebody beside Biden be on the ticket. But he hasn't said that openly.
I was, talking about just the inside the Beltway opinions out there,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was scanning the Wall Street Journal earlier, William Gelston's column, if Biden steps down, Democrats could win the election. And then you had Karl Rove, what Biden's exit could do for Democrats, saying Democrats could win if Biden steps down. Now, the question I would have is, do they actually believe that? Or do they believe that would completely blow up in the Democrats' face? You were telling me about what was it you just told me right before we went on the air?
It was, what's his name over at Politico who posted, let me get back to that, who posted it was an interesting thread yesterday afternoon. Jonathan Martin at Politico had a short thread. New. Biden aides are telephoning convention delegates to head off a rebellion in Chicago. I, Jonathan Martin, talked to 4 delegates who got temp talking calls this week. I've also learned of an effort by delegates asking for rule change so they can vote their conscience. The second in that thread, A fifth convention delegate reaches out to me tonight to share getting the same call. Begins with logistics and then moves to more direct asking about supporting Biden. This delegate got called on Monday. And then the next part of the thread, which I went, whoa. Again, Jonathan Martin from Politico. It's hard to overstate the despair among some Democrat delegates and many Democrat officials and aides, including those working on Biden's campaign. Sadness, anger, and shock that this is real.
And that's when I hear, well, Democrats could do it. Well, Democrats could do anything. I mean, Republicans could do anything. It's will they do it? Mm-hmm. And the way I look at it is that you had to get Biden in there. You had, by the way, I read an editorial yesterday saying Biden was in there so you couldn't put in the true populist Bernie Sanders. Like, stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
He may have some populist opinions, but he's as far socialist as you can get.
Right.
But I've just that one just got to me. But I look at this and say, this was the this was the compromise to get in somebody who was perceived as being a moderate, but who they could manipulate, which, by the way, they succeeded in doing.
Yeah, right.
You know, he was able to basically, the left was able to get way more out of Joe Biden than anybody thought, but still, he was the establishment pick for them.
Mm-hmm.
You've had, and I know you've got, there was a great editorial about AOC and Bernie Sanders, why they're supporting them. Well, they hope to benefit if Biden wins in the second term, but you've got a far left out there that feels like they're still being ignored by, even though they got a lot of what they wanted from Biden, I believe they still feel ignored by this party.
Right.
If you believe you're going to lose anyway, then if you have a chance to gain power inside the Democratic Party,
yeah,
you're telling me you're not going to go for it, that all of a sudden the Democrats become reasonable in that type of scenario? It's a great unknown, but there is no guarantee because, number one, you look at the candidates out there, the candidates that they have to choose from and how you get by the whole Harris debacle out there. But I really wondered, I go, are they just writing this because they want the Democrats to do that because of the Democrats? If the Democrats do, somehow or Biden does step down or they convince him to step down, then it will be complete disaster for them. Because I am not as confident as they might be. Everything's a possibility. Anything could possibly happen, as we know, because nobody expected to be where we are right now.
No.
Anybody 4 months ago call this?
Well, we kept asking the question, so you're going to have a debate? Really? You're going to let him on a debate stage? You're really going to do that? Really? But my gosh, the soup show that is going on right now, oof. Wow.
The only chance the Democrats have, it seems now, is if you had Schumer and Jeffries and Pelosi, and I like the term the Obama bros, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, does the bro part of it relate to the Seinfeld episode?
Mm.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, with everything going on and today, the bros might relate to something completely different.
Right, exactly.
Boys, people that know Seinfeld know where I'm going with that. People that don't know Seinfeld don't, and I'm not going to explain it. But I've always, as a few editorials or op-ed pieces out yesterday saying Obama's going to have no impact on what Biden does. And we've said this, I would say, probably more than anything about what was influencing or controlling the Biden administration over the last couple of years. The majority of response we got from our listeners was Obama was, and we've said, no, he's not. We've said that over and over again. No, he is not. Obama, they're not friends. And so this whole thing, but it's still out there. Well, if Obama comes in, he'll drop it. And then the other op-ed piece is coming out saying, no, if you know anything about their relationship, it may have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
if Obama's a part of it.
Right.
Now, Schumer and Pelosi and Jeffries go and tell him he's got to drop out. I don't know if his family will let that happen, if they'll let that meeting happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they build the wall around it, until Joe himself forces himself to the podium, Hunter and Jill are not going to allow that to happen. They're not going to. That little wall that they built around Joe Biden is going nowhere. You know, I'm wondering the move of sending aides to talk to senators. You know, because from my perspective, I look at it and go, well, no, that's totally a Hunter and Jill move here, and Joe Biden move. And, yeah, you may be wanting to get honest feedback. You're trying to get a head count. You're trying to find out who it is. You're trying to find out also who's willing to be vocal about it.
Or you're just going through the motions.
You know, or you're just kind of, you know, we hear you, that whole thing. That
Oh, God.
KJP keeps repeating, I hear you. I hear you. No, you don't. You clearly do not.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. On a hot summer day, the last thing you want to feel is a blast of warm air when you turn on your air conditioning. A malfunctioning AC system will leave you uncomfortably shifting in your seat. Not to mention, it can affect the safety and performance of your entire vehicle and your productivity. When issues with your AC system begin to occur internally, your truck will give you some warning signs. Those include a noisy compressor and a lack of water dripping from the cab drain tube while your AC is running. If you experience either of these warning signs, you should have your AC system inspected by a professional technician immediately. Listen to your truck and invest the time now to avoid spending more time in the shop later on.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I saw this on social media yesterday, what the scenario was like yesterday and what it's been the last few days. Democrats, Joe, it's time to decide if you're staying in the race. Biden family, we're staying in. Democrats, you don't have to decide today, but definitely soon. We're staying in. Democrats, let us know when you decide. Biden family, decision made. We're staying in. Democrats, okay, but it's like in a relationship. I hate you and I'm leaving you. Well, that's a conversation that we could have. No, I've thought about it. I'm out of here. Well, I hope you think about it hard. I did think. Stop patronizing me. It's over. I'm out.
Yeah,
My God.
it just keeps getting worse. And really, you really now have to temper everything that's coming out with by any Democrat on Capitol Hill with measuring who's on the down ballot and who's not. Fetterman is not up for re-election.
Yeah.
Fetterman endorsing Joe Biden, doubling down on the Joe Biden endorsement, means nothing to him this cycle. And we'll see what it does when he is up for re-election, if he runs for re-election. But he's not on the ballot. So, and if they're on the down ballot, you have to measure it by where are they? Are they in a safe district or state? And they're endorsing Biden? Well, they can do that. They can get away with that politically. Now, those who seemingly are in safe states and districts that are issuing concern, that's an interesting dynamic because it means their own party is affected by that. Their own constituents are hesitating, and that's a problem.
Have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Radio.
And he's Eric Crowley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. My favorite response to the where do you stand on Biden came from Tim Kaine.
Mm.
He actually came up with the best answer for a Democrat right now.
All right.
You ready?
All right.
Here we go. All right.
I have complete confidence that Joe Biden will do the patriotic thing for the country, and he's going to make that decision. He's never disappointed me. He's always put patriotism and the country ahead of himself, and I'm going to respect the decision he makes.
Never answers the question.
What does that mean?
Just going to do he's going to do the patriotic thing. He's always done the patriotic thing. He'll do the patriotic thing now, which is, does that mean he stays or he goes?
You know, because I was waiting for this. I was waiting for Joe Biden has defeated Donald Trump once. He can also help us defeat Donald Trump this time by doing the right thing.
We're helping out Democrats here.
Yeah.
We're not really helping out Democrats because everybody can see through it. But
we're trolling really hard. And, and we're okay with that. Because that's, I could kind of see maybe George Clooney will pay for it. Full page ad in the New York Times. Do they have a full page anymore?
That doesn't mean anything anymore. A full page ad.
If you place a full page ad in a newspaper and no one gets the hard copy, does anyone hear it fall? No, I mean, I could see them start a campaign, with what I just said. Help us defeat Donald Trump again. You defeated him once. Help us defeat him again by doing the right thing. Get out! Would you just leave? Wow. And again, the more they say get out, here's the thing. You had Nadler walk it back the other day. You've got Democrats. Nancy's kind of all over the place. She frankly just doesn't want to be heard in the hallway talking about it. And it's, again, I don't know why, because Nancy, what does Nancy care? She's no longer Speaker. She's never going to be Speaker again. And quite frankly, her days are numbered because of her age. I don't know how many more times she's going to run, but she's in a safe district, I guess. There's a question. We talk about the safe district thing, but for some Democrats, are they afraid that too many of them will stay home? Well, look, it's going to go Democrat in her district, and no one's, it's not, even if there was great voter apathy in her district, she's still going to win. So she's safe, which kind of makes me scratch my head as to, her position. Schumer, same thing. And he's just going to hold the line. The story got out yesterday that, and again, it's a source story. He hasn't said this publicly, that Schumer, behind closed doors, was open to having somebody else on the ballot, other than Biden. Well,
what changed his mind yesterday? Was it, again, because we saw this a couple of weeks ago, was it, again, the narrative that you saw out there that New York is in play now?
Right.
For Republicans?
Right. Well, see, there you have it, right? And so how many Democrats are looking at this going, I used to be in a safe district or state. Things used to be safe for me. They're not so safe, and they're not safe for the party. Because if there is a landslide, if a landslide is going to happen, the House, I don't know, I haven't seen anybody do the math, I don't know if you have, on how many seats the Republicans can pick up. They've botched it before. There was going to be a red wave in 22, and, well, that didn't happen. But this is different. This is very different than 2022. So I don't know. I haven't seen that. And in the Senate, I think the top number that the GOP could get to is 53, 54, I think is the top number of seats they could get. But still, how much damage is done to the Democratic Party long term?
Well, when you see this here, the Remington research poll that came out, Pennsylvania, Casey 49, McCormick 48.
Yeah.
Ohio, Brown 40, Moreno 44. And so the Democrats up in that one by 6. But still, that's, you're still in the game at that point. Montana, Tester down by 5.
Yeah.
Nevada, Rosen 48, Brown 46, plus 2 there for the Democrat. Arizona, Gallego 47, Lake 47. Wisconsin is tied. Michigan, slucking up by 4. And then it came out in Texas, Cruz 53, Allred 43. I still think it's greater in Texas for Cruz. I look at those, and I look at those numbers. When I see that for Cruz, I really think Cruz is a 13 to 15 point winner in Texas.
I think somewhere in there, yeah.
And so when I look at that, I go, okay. And this, by the way, this is a Republican poll, but I just don't buy, because you saw earlier, there's a couple of polls, remember, out a couple months. Well, it's really close for Cruz, and it's like, stop it.
Yeah,
Texas is not. Well, Texas is turning blue.
Yeah,
New York may be in play, but Texas is not going to be in play.
No, it's not. And some of the polling and shaping up of what states rather are in play, and which ones are not in terms of toss-up states is kind of comical in the methodology if you look at it. But now, one thing that has changed is over the last few days, you've seen in a number of polls where those states that were toss-ups have gone, a handful of them have gone leans GOP or likely GOP, or some of these solid blue states leans Democrat, which is softening essentially and in favor of the GOP. So my another question that I have is, if the money is drying up, if the donors are on the fence for Biden, they're also on the fence for the party, are they not? Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't seen that part. What are they doing? Are they pouring money into House races? Are they pouring money into Senate races instead of giving to a Biden PAC? And that's what I'd like to see.
Well, there's two things that I question, and I think one of them I believe you answered was either yesterday or the day before, and that's when looking at the polling that was done on Trump with every Democrat.
Yeah.
And Biden's the closest. Everybody else has their weaknesses against Trump. Well, what's their weakness? Where the Democratic Party stands on the issues. Inflation isn't going away.
Mm-hmm.
You saw yesterday, 198 Democrats voted saying, no, we should not have to prove that we're American citizens to vote in federal elections. Only 5 voted with Democrats. This is how radical the party is, to believe that the issues are not a part of everything. Remember, Trump was still in the lead before the Biden debate.
Yeah, right.
So what's that based on? That's based on a ton of things, including the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at that, it's like, whoa. The other is the money. I mean, they're talking about the big donors that what is it? It's the funding has been cut in half. The donations, and that is absolutely, that's key, and that's key and that's critical. The other thing that I question, and again, every election is completely unique and different. And this one, I think, to make comparisons to 2016 and 2020 is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
You can't do that.
Right.
Maybe it's easy because you go back and say, well, if this is 2016, here's now. Completely different ball game here. We've seen things that we've never seen, that no living human has ever seen in the American government, from lawfare to this kind of inflation that we have. The majority of Americans haven't seen it. The last inflation, like this was really, 45 to 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so this is a completely, totally, new concept. But where it shows that Trump, and maybe this will be changing in the polls over the next couple of weeks, where Trump is outperforming, some of the Senate candidates. We looked in Arizona, for example, where, and this goes back maybe 2 months ago, where it was like Trump is winning in Arizona. Remember the one thing where Kari Lake was down by 13?
Yeah.
And we're like, there's not a 16-point difference. There's no way you've got 16% of people that would vote for Trump that all of them are not going to vote for Kari Lake. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
I have questions about whether that is actually legitimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, things are so screwed up right now. They always measure the passion of the Republican voter versus the Democrat voter. You get to November, you get to October when early voting starts, and Biden is still the nominee. Where's the excitement to go out and vote? And I don't know, because this is unprecedented. Biden is an unprecedented president. We've never had a more radical administration based on the things that they want to do. The Democratic Party is the most radical party in American history. They are losing young people. They're losing minorities. And as we have stated, tell me one issue that is of major concern to the American public right now that the polls show where the Democrats have a lead. They don't. And where they stand on the major issues, people view it as being insane.
Yeah. You see a number of these races tightening up, both post-debate for sure and post-verdict, Trump verdict. But those races tightening up, as we mentioned, Arizona, Nevada is tightening a great deal in the latest poll. And again, it's the Remington research, a Republican pollster, as you point out. It is a registered voter poll. But
just very quickly, I didn't know this, and it just sparked something I saw when I was on vacation. In 2016, registered voter polls were closer than likely voter polls.
Oh, all right.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Which, again, that normally isn't the case, which means that's why I've said it's very tough to look back at a previous election and say, you can look at it and say, well, normally this is the case, but then that was blown out of the water in 2016.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there were a lot of things about that were also unprecedented. Every election cycle is unique, but that one too. A guy that had never run for office ended up winning the White House. Who knows where it goes, and who knows if any of the pollsters were even close right now.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Quickly to Rob in Utica, New York. Rob, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, thank you very much for taking the call. Thank you, Eric and Gary. I've got a question for you. Are you suggesting that the triumvirate of the foundation of the Democratic Party is the Senate, MSNBC, and Hollywood?
No.
And if you are,
No.
then I think that's a good thing.
No.
No. So
well, we don't. Not those three. I think you see a succession of polls even before the debate. The majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run.
It's the rank and file. It's the voters. That's what's crumbling and has been, in fact, before the entire debate debacle.
Right.
But this is just further indication of that when you get George Clooney, because they made a big deal about that Hollywood fundraising. That's on them, by the way. And so when George Clooney decides to write a piece in the New York Times and says basically it's over just a few weeks after raising millions of dollars for Biden, that is a big deal. That's nothing short of catastrophic in political realms.
A few more comments we'll have on that that question coming up next.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. What were those headlines you were reading to me during the top of the hour from the Babylon Bee?
In a new Ocean's 14, George Clooney pulls off a $30 million heist by tricking people into giving money to a politician before revealing he's demented. Wow. And then the one I loved yesterday that they posted. Hold on a second. I got to get back to the, all right, about Mayor Brandon. Because who was he blaming on the gun violence? Nixon, that's right. But the Babylon Bee. Chicago mayor blames spike in violence on 9th century Chinese monks who invented gunpowder. I love it. That's funny.
We died laughing about that the other day because that is how intellectually bankrupt Mayor Johnson is. But you think about it, it's like, geez, I can't blame Trump for some reason,
right?
Because he looked at all the Republicans, can't blame Trump, can't blame W,
right?
Can't blame Herbert Walker Bush,
right?
Can't blame Reagan,
right?
Nixon, it's Nixon's fault,
right? You notice how he just skipped over Ford.
Oh my God! So did I.
Yeah. Well, frankly, everyone did. But
oh my God!
oh man.
To Rob in Utica, New York. Every time I hear Utica, New York,
yeah,
I think of a band that I saw. Had to be. I was working at Harvey Weinstein's club, Stage 1 in Buffalo, and a band from Utica, Rome came in.
Yeah,
New York, called Mr. Ed, EDD.
Okay,
and I was working at Stage, so I was just I wasn't working that night, but somebody said you got to see this band. They were just great. They did. I remember the guy's name. I think he's a professor. He was a professor. I don't know if he still is at Hamilton College in Central New York. Monk Rowe. And this guy actually did like puppets while they were playing. And it was the Muppets singing Whip It by Devo. It was it was fantastic. I mean, it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
It was one of those things you walk in, you have no idea. You got to go see him. They really put on a show, and you're like, oh, my God.
Yeah,
this is completely bizarre and weird and great. Yeah. And I can't even think of the characters from the Muppets. They go, whip it good, and the puppets were doing it, and it was, it was kicking butt. It was It was loud, but the sound was great. I mean, it was powerful. And then the Muppet's voice comes in to sing with it.
I love it. I love it.
But and this like I said, goes back to 79 or 80.
Yeah,
maybe it was 81. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we do not think, because when the question was, because we had talked about what Ezra Klein and George Clooney and Nancy Pelosi had said. He goes, and his question was, is that the reason? Do you believe that's the reason? Do you believe that them saying that is evidence of the foundation of the Democratic Party crumbling? Well, there's two separate things. Number one, there's the ideology. The leftist ideology is not crumbling. It's still out there worldwide, and it's still very prominent in the United States in the Democratic Party. Otherwise, you would not have had 198 members of the House, Democrat members of the House, vote publicly a few months before an election to say that federal elections should not, that only American citizens should be voting in American federal elections.
Yeah.
For them to do that shows there's still power, they believe, to the liberalism. Now, the public is moving away from it. I think that the foundation of the Democratic Party is starting to crumble. And I believe it's because they've taken, it's not just because of what's happened in the last couple of weeks, because of Biden. It's helping to accelerate it, but it's where they stand on the issues. It's the insanity on the issues that here in the United States we're not going to accept.
Right.
They may accept it more in Canada. They may accept it more in Europe. We're not going to accept it here in the United States. It's like gun control. If you want an idea of gun control, it's like the Second Amendment is ingrained in the people of the United States. Even the people that don't like the Second Amendment and don't believe that you have a personal right to self-protection, Justice Sotomayor, whose then her armed guards shoot somebody who is attempting to hijack one of her vehicles.
Yeah.
There are just some things in the United States. You may have the urban areas in this country that have been driving liberalism and the Democratic Party, but there's a ton of people that don't believe in the crap that they're attempting to sell. And I believe you have the ebb and flow, and the ebb is coming back to more conservative and or populist values. But I also have worries. The article in The Fake Populism of Conservatives for a Higher Corporate Tax. And we've attacked people like Josh Hawley, who, by the way, on many things when it comes to integrity and truth and transparency is right on. But he's absolutely promoting himself as a populist socialist when it comes to a ton of different fiscal ideas. Yeah. And and that worries me because with the Republican Party, it goes 2 nights ago at the National Conservatism Conference, Senator Josh Hawley told the audience that Trump's 2017 cut of the corporate income tax rate to 21% is at the top of the list of economic policy mistakes by Trump. That's insane. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's Democrat insanity coming from Josh Hawley.
Yep.
Because because his whole point is corporations bad, workers good. Well, who the hell do you think a corporate tax hits? It hits the workers, and it's a stealth tax. And we hate it because it's a stealth tax. It's a way for government to tax and promote the lie that we're going after those evil corporations, and you're not affected by it at all, when actually it's a stealth tax that hurts the middle class and the poor the most.
And that's his attempt here, Hawley, to basically build that jealousy and envy and hatred for corporations it's straight out of the liberal playbook and what the liberals have been doing for a long, long time. And you go after them, and then you tax them more, and that tax is passed on to the consumer, as it always is. It's a stealth tax, and I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but this is not the first time that Hawley has expressed such views out of the liberal playbook.
Right.
And that should be concerning to everybody.
And so when you talk about as a foundation of the Democratic Party crumbling with these people in power right now, it might. But when you take one of the biggest lies that has been promoted by the Democratic Party, that corporate taxes, hit those greedy corporations and not the worker, when actually it's the reverse. It's a stealth tax on the worker, and you have one of the most well-known Republican leaders, because he is. I mean, he's loud out there. I mean, this is his first term. Still, but he's viewed as one of the up-and-coming leaders, and he's promoting the biggest lie of the Democrats over the last 50 years in this country. Well, then it shows you that the people in the Democratic Party may be crumbling, but you have the Republican Party, again, not as concerned about debt anymore, as we all know. That's one of the things, that was talked about with the Republican platform. What about the debt? What about the debt? What about the debt? Did you see Senator Kennedy with the head of the CBO? What a goofball that guy seems like.
Yeah.
Did you see it? It's really goofy.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
But he still said in order to what we would need to do right now to attempt to get everything in his order is a 7 to 8% cut across the board and keep it for years. And still that's not going to solve the problem. We have a horrible problem with debt that neither party wants to confront. We've got a horrible problem coming up with Social Security and Medicare that neither party wants to confront. I did see yesterday where it was like, oh, okay, well then we're not going to change Social Security, so we're going to increase the cost of Social Security to the people. Well, yeah, you got to do one or the other.
Right.
You're not going to touch Social Security. And hey, I start collecting next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good luck with that.
Well, I got better luck than you. You're a few years behind me. I may get it. I may get the full amount for 10 years, but something has to be. You can't ignore it. So, right now, the people, it's crumbling around Biden and the people currently in there. But the ideology, when you look at the liberal ideology, it still exists, and you have major Republicans with some of the biggest lies of liberal Democrats that are promoting it as their agenda because they believe that's the agenda to have a future in politics. You simply call yourself a Republican and you promote liberal lies, as Josh Hawley is doing there.
Yeah.
And by the way, this isn't the first time we've criticized him. And by the way, I love when he goes after and looking for transparency in the Biden administration and going after, for example, I know Tom Cotton did it, but he's also attacked, the radical liberal transgender activist movement, critical race theory. He's gone after all those things. He does a lot of right things. But look, economically speaking, government control and federal government control over money is still the worst problem that we have in this country.
Yep.
One of the worst problems that we have. I'll say one of the worst physical problems because there's a lot of different problems. And so, is this Democratic Party crumbling? Is it only because those three said it? No, there's a ton of other things out there. Their stance on critical race theory, their stance on the radical transgender movement. They're not caring about debt. Now, the Republican Party still cares more about the debt than the Democratic Party, but not as much as they used to.
Yeah.
So, no, we would never look at three people stating something in one day and say, well, that proves the downfall of the foundation of a political party.
No, but it is certainly politically when you've got, just a few weeks time span, a guy who is, because think about it, it really was the biggest of this cycle, the biggest Hollywood fundraiser in terms of the media coverage surrounding it, with Obama there and everybody else there. And then the guy who's throwing it a few weeks later is saying, get out. That's a big deal. That is catastrophic politically because it's an indication of where the donors are and where they're not. George Clooney himself, nobody cares about. That's not the point. He was the conduit.
And it is an example of everything that we have seen since that has happened, from the New York Times, the Washington Post, so many Michael Moore, for example, all coming out and saying it is the crumbling of the foundation of this presidency.
Yeah.
of the Democratic Party? No.
No, because these things don't stand
Right.
alone. These three items that the caller asked about, they don't stand alone. That's just what happened yesterday. That's just one day on a pile, a big heaping, steaming pile that's now catching fire. I mean, there's just no way to put it out, because in the hallways you have and behind closed doors and on the phone, you have many people now, Democrats, that do not want this president to go on.
I'll tell you an example of if you want evidence of where you could say, okay, the Democratic Party is crumbling, the foundation is crumbling, is if Trump wins the presidency 58-42.
Yeah.
If it was a head-to-head race,
Right.
hypothetically.
Yeah, right.
That isn't happening. Right now you have him with the 3-point lead, which means if Trump has, just using this as a base point, 50% of the vote, or 53% of the vote, or no, because it would be if he's got 51.5% of the vote, that means Joe Biden has 48.5% of the vote. These are people that would vote for Biden. That's not a crumbling of a party yet.
No.
It's headed that way, and we believe that because of their philosophy of victim oppressors, there's victims and there's oppressors. We have to create more victims, therefore we create more oppressors, and their identity politics, which judges people by groups and not individuals. They're a party that's attempting to divide and not unite. The Republicans are, even though the Republicans are going at some of it in the wrong direction, their attempt is to unite people. Now, if it's behind a wrong populist thing that corporations are evil and workers are good, therefore let's raise the corporate taxes. But think about it. The greatest success that Trump had, was lowering the corporate tax rate, because he did that.
Yep.
We give him full credit for it because Republicans weren't even on board.
Right.
He pushed that through. To Josh Hawley, that's Trump's biggest failure.
Right. Wow.
That's a problem. That's a problem for, down the line, because number one, the whole concept what Josh Hawley is promoting is bull.
Yeah. Yeah. It's garbage.
It's garbage. And so and so, like I said, though, it's the crumbling of this presidency without question.
It's
the Democratic
it's the crumbling
Party,
of a presidency and a campaign.
Yeah.
And the damage done to the Democratic Party and their movement, any damage, and we can't measure it just yet, but any damage being done is being done by reality.
866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
After fuel, an owner-operator's second biggest variable cost is tires. To save, get as much life out of them as possible with good habits. Maintain proper inflation. It's free and easy, yet it's the highest saving maintenance you can perform on the truck. Improper inflation is by far the greatest reason tires fail early. Perform routine maintenance. If a technician can, by hand, initiate irregular movements in tie rod ends, kingpins, wheel bearings, and torque rods, that spells trouble. Fight irregular wear by replacing suspension components. On the steer axle, change your shocks at least as often as you change your tires. On the drive axle, replace shocks halfway through the tire's life, and when the tires are changed too. Finally, employ good driving habits. You have full control here. More conservative driving over rough surfaces helps reduce wear. Speeding, hard braking, curbing, and tight turns cause tires to wear fast. On the other hand, steady acceleration, braking, and steering can extend the life, saving a bundle. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section on the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I think this the story about is New York a battleground actually came from the poll that I believe was before the debate.
Yeah, I think it was.
That was before the debate, but it came up again yesterday, and I wondered if it was recycled. I mean, I'm reading it from Just the News, but I wondered. I don't know why that became a story yesterday from a poll a few weeks old, unless it came from Democrats who were attempting, or the media, the liberal media, attempting to show the seriousness of the situation that Biden is creating for the entire Democratic Party.
Right.
But that poll, I believe, was done before the debate.
Yeah, I think so.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Just a few minutes after our show is over, it becomes our podcast. So, yeah, it's our show podcast. So you can listen during the day. All right, you ready for this? Biden co-chair Chris Coons on CNN.
All right.
With the whole apparently big boy news, that in itself. And good God, Kirby.
Oh, man.
That was said it, and Kirby repeating it was just horrible the other day. I'm talking about from the, if I'm a political consultant for the Democrats, that's
right.
Understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, don't lean into something like that.
Yeah, but here's Chris Coons here yesterday.
What are you telling him about what you're hearing from your fellow senators?
That a lot of my colleagues have expressed concerns that they needed to see him go out and campaign, do a long-form interview, do an unstructured press conference. But I have said to my colleagues, remember who Joe Biden is. We can't set a bar so high that who Joe Biden's been for 30 years can't clear it. He's always had a slight stutter.
Wow.
Yeah.
All we have to say is Biden versus Paul Ryan in 2012.
Yeah. Go back and look at the debates in 2020.
Yeah.
Come on. It's...
And compare it to that. But if you want to go really back to see, because he's saying 30 years, so let's go back to the Paul Ryan debate where Paul Ryan blew it.
Yeah.
But Biden was a completely different person at that time, and still had the lifelong stutter, and it didn't matter.
And he's been able to lie very smoothly on the debate stage and everywhere else with no problems whatsoever. Now, there was an entire list of bizarre lies that he's been telling for years. But keep in mind, he repeated those lies, which means he remembered them. And now he seemingly doesn't, at times, remember where he is in the moment.
The story on New York, it was, like I said, it was on social media yesterday. New York's close. And I thought maybe there's new polls, but this goes back to the poll from, I believe, before the debate. Amid the intense scrutiny over whether Democratic President Joe Biden is mentally and physically fit for a second term, he appears to be losing ground in the Democratic stronghold of New York, which hasn't voted in favor of a GOP presidential candidate since Ronald Reagan in 1984. Polls over the past 4 months show presumptive GOP nominee Donald Trump has cut Biden's lead to just 8 points across New York, where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1. Meanwhile, Trump has a single-digit lead in essentially every battleground state: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, according to the most recent Real Clear Politics poll averages. So any victory in a blue state, including New York, with 28 electoral votes would widen Trump's path to victory. Despite the Democrats' winning streak in New York, Trump has set his sights on winning his former home state and began campaigning there in New Jersey and New York. So there you go. Now, whether he can take New York, still have great doubts of that. But that was out there yesterday, it seemed. And I thought one of the reasons is it is to panic Democrats more that, my God, if Trump can take New York, how bad is Biden? He's got to go. Understand this is about politics. They don't believe he can win. This got nothing to do. They don't care. If they thought he could win, they wouldn't care that they already knew that his cognitive abilities have declined rapidly over the last 4 years.
Yeah, right.
There's got nothing. And the point is, though, they can't get away from that, Eric. They can't get away. They can't sit there and say, he can't win, he can't win, he can't win. He's not qualified to be president. He can't win. You have Clooney come out yesterday. He says it. Pelosi, doesn't want to touch it. She's all over the place, telling people to leave her alone. The public already believes, including the majority of Democrats, that he's too old to be president now.
Yeah.
And the Democrats continually pounding on this day in and day out in the back and forth just keeps it in the public's attention every single day.
Well, and the Democrats are scrambling, and so again, this thought that the party might lose in a much bigger way if Biden is on the ballot has those that are on the down ballot desperate. They've got to keep this conversation alive. There's a reason it's not gone yet, and it likely won't go away. The point was made yesterday. I saw the comment made yesterday by some that said, okay, yeah, the polls show that this candidate wouldn't perform as well as Biden, but if they were actually in the race, and we kind of touched on this yesterday, well, if you're looking at hypotheticals versus what's actually real, does it change? Can they campaign to come from where they are now, any of them, to a point where they would be competitive against Trump? They're looking at this saying, we have to at least try. And the point yesterday was that's the belief on the inside, that at least they would not be getting worse between now and November 5th. And that is the case for Biden. Biden's situation, whatever's going on with him, is not going to turn around. It's not going to improve between now and November 5th. Politically, there's nothing that's going to improve it. So you have to get somebody out there, they believe, that can sell their agenda better, but also is not going to be seen as somebody who is in a clear decline, to remotivate people, to get them back. So at least if they don't win, Democrats don't get hit so hard on the down ballot. I tend to believe that's already in play, but I could be wrong. I don't know what's possible, because first it has to happen. First, all of these things have to be in motion, and the only way that is going to be in motion is if Joe Biden himself decides he's not going to run. But they're saying their point is that they only have a certain period of time. They've got it needs to happen now, and that's why every day you're hearing them voice their opinions. You're hearing the desperation in their voices, and that's not going to change because the clock is ticking. You can't get to October 1st and decide it. It has to be done now.
And there really is no other story. I did I say that off the air or on the air, that while whatever the inflation is tomorrow, that story's not really going to matter.
Right,
All
right.
the reporters, everyone. And I think it's because the mainstream media has decided they want Joe out.
Yeah, right.
When the New York Times doubled down the other day, it's like, okay, they're not backing off. Nobody's paying attention to Biden. Reading here from Phil Klein, National Review, Democrats are now facing the worst of all worlds with Biden. By Tuesday morning, it was starting to feel like the effort to oust Biden from the ticket was losing ground, right? I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
After he insisted he wasn't going anywhere, and a number of prominent Democrats came out to forcefully support him. However, it seems now, and he wrote this at 5:19 p.m. yesterday, however, it seems now that all Biden's team managed to do was to apply a tourniquet to stop the bleeding but not resolve the underlying injury. bad news keeps coming. Swing state polls show Biden falling further behind Trump, and a number of Democrats have come out with skeptical statements, both publicly and privately, ranging from telling him to drop out to expressing concerns about his ability to beat Donald Trump. And now NBC is reporting that fundraising is suffering, quoting one source as saying the money has absolutely shut off. The two, by the way, that will be another level of, I think, would passion be the word, of almost insane passion from Democrats once they realize that the funding is drying up, and when Biden realizes the funding is drying up. That's still going to be interesting to see where that goes, because if Trump is pounding ads, it's going to further.
Yeah.
And Biden really isn't speaking. He's not out there every day campaigning against Trump. Nobody's campaigning against Trump.
Right.
And sorry, Jill isn't a campaigner.
No. Well, and that's it. Are they seeing the money dry up for the congressional races as well? I mean, the party is likely seeing all the money dry up. Now, I don't know to what extent, and that's my question. I can't gauge that. But if it is the case, or if it's the fear that eventually it will, that the party will stop getting donations altogether, because you got to go back to the grassroots donations. That's not a small thing. When there's that euphoria that we saw in 2008 with Barack Obama, grassroots donations were big. After the conviction of Donald Trump, wow, the first 24 hours, grassroots donations were massive. But now you have to ask about where that money is flowing to, and if it's flowing at all. And if it's drying up for the party altogether, they've got a massive problem. And, yeah, I agree with you. That's where the chaos will get even louder.
He's right. This is shaping up to be the worst of all worlds for Democrats. Had Biden swiftly dropped out after the debate, Democrats could have moved on to Plan B by now. Also, Democrats could have all rallied around Biden, went with the bad night excuse, and the issue of the nomination would have been resolved, even if the issue of the mental fitness was not. What's happening now, however, is that enough Democrats are backing Biden that he's feeling no real pressure to drop out, so they can't start moving on to Plan B, but he is still being pummeled every day by leaks or other top Democrats coming out with critical statements. We are nearing 2 weeks since we are now there.
Yeah, today we're there.
We are now nearing 2 weeks since a disastrous debate, and there is no end to this crisis until Biden either drops out or gets formally nominated. If he hangs on and secures a nomination next month, he will be badly damaged by the weeks of attacks on his mental fitness from within his own tent, and likely fatally wounded. If Democrats oust him through some drawn-out process, it will leave the party deeply divided going into the fall. You know, like I said, when I was reading Karl Rove and then the other op-ed writer in the Wall Street Journal yesterday saying, well, you know, if they do this, you know, it doesn't have to be a disaster. No, it doesn't. Nothing has to be a disaster.
No.
But when you see, for example, this and everything that has happened, and we've given warnings to the Republicans already and to Trump, don't believe you're winning.
Right.
Always believe you're down by 20 points. So far, Trump has done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I think of just staying out of it and let the civil war within the Democratic Party continue on this. But that's the thing. Every day, Eric, there's this ebb and flow. You wake up one day, you're like, oh, okay, looks like Biden's going to stay.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, you're like, oh, my gosh, no, he's not. You know, no, he's not. And it's like, well, what's going to happen? Nobody knows, because the media is just all over this. As Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, said during the Republicans' press conference on Tuesday morning, it's like, where's everybody? And he was smiling. He goes, nobody's here. They're all chasing down Democrats in the hallways and everything. I mean, that's the whole Nancy Pelosi, where she said, in fact, do I have it here to make sure? I don't know if it's going to play fully through. Here we go. Here we go. Here it is. Okay.
Do you believe that him waiting so long to make this
Okay, you can't hear it loud. There's problems with it. But the reporter, do you believe Biden should run for president? Am I speaking English to you? I'm not going to be making any statements about any of that right now.
Yeah.
Well, you can't sit there. They make statements, and then they say, well, we're not going to comment on it. Well, you already commented on it.
Right.
It's almost like if you take the fifth, you got to take the fifth all the way through. You can't take the fifth and then say, but I'm going to answer some questions, or answer some questions and then say, I'm going to take the fifth now.
Right.
And that's what's going on. It's pure insanity right now.
It really is chaotic.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I have I think I clean it up here? No, not yet. Hang on 1 second. I thought I had it, and then no, there it is. I've got it. All right, here it is. Nancy Pelosi in the hallway. All right? Here we go. All right.
Do you believe that him waiting so long to make this decision?
I'm not going to make any comments in the hallway about the fate of our nation. Okay?
Are you concerned whether or not he can win in November?
I think he can.
Do you believe he should run for re-election?
I'm not speaking English to you. I'm not going to be making any statements about any of that right now in the hallway.
Funny thing is, she did.
You already did.
She was commenting, and then she said, well, I'm not going to comment. Well, you just did comment.
You just did.
That was going on all day yesterday with Democrats.
Yeah.
That was just insane.
Yeah, they would like this to stop, no doubt, but it's not gonna.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Oh, man. I've got to find this here. I think I bookmarked it. Yeah, this is a audio cut that was somebody put this together, but it's from George Clooney in the movie Up in the Air.
Uh-huh.
And what they do is they show Clooney, and then in the next scene when the camera moves, it's Biden listening.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen the movie Up in the Air, it's an interesting movie. It's about people whose jobs are to go fire when there's massive layoffs. They're the ones that do it. They're the ones that companies bring in, and Clooney is one of those people, and it's up in the air because he's always flying.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is, oh my God, this is just, here we go.
So although I wish I were here with better news, the fact is that you and I are sitting here today because this will be your last week of employment. This is not an assessment of your productivity. You gotta try not to take this personally.
Well, I just had a bad night.
Well, I just had a bad night. It's even funnier if you know the movie.
Yeah,
if you've seen the movie before.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
George Clooney is firing him. Yeah, and then there's the pending NBC News Lester Holt interview that apparently is going to happen with Joe Biden. Why?
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. The Democrats are acting like this is still a one-off thing, that, it happened during the debate, and it can be repaired because it was something that only happened once when you already had over 70%, I think it was 80% of the people in a couple of the polls believe that Biden's too old to run. You're not going to change that.
No, you're not. And remember the whole Stephanopoulos thing, that interview was being promoted as Biden's last chance. Well, keep in mind, before that, the debate was Biden's last chance. Remember the Rasmussen Reports poll that came out, and it showed that 34% of Democrats were of the mindset, this is before the debate, that the debate was his last chance to prove himself. So you already had 34% saying, yeah, I've got questions, big questions. Look, you already had the majority of the rank-and-file Democrats in numerous polls that said they didn't want him to be the guy. But they were saying, nope, that 34%, this is it. This is his last chance. And then the Stephanopoulos interview. Well, this is his last chance. And how are they going to promote the NBC interview with Lester Holt? This is his last chance. No, you don't get that many last chances. Politically, you don't. And I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't know. By the way, the back and forth with the head of ABC News and George Stephanopoulos, the reports are she's furious with Stephanopoulos, the head of ABC News, and is not happy with him commenting and making that comment on the fly that he doesn't believe Biden can serve another 4 years. Well, it's exactly what George Stephanopoulos believes. You know, they made him, it was a statement that was issued by ABC News ultimately, and then they released a separate statement of their own saying, we don't share the views of Stephanopoulos. And Stephanopoulos basically saying, yeah, I shouldn't have responded to somebody on the street because I never know when it's going to be a TMZ reporter. Somebody's got a camera in their hand, even if it's a phone camera, and you're going to respond to them?
Well, Chuck Todd yesterday saying that he's that over 2 years ago, he spoke to a cabinet member that said the president doesn't have it.
Right.
Chuck Todd said that yesterday.
Right. Exactly. But, you know, again, we go back to where were all these people? We know that they knew it before the debate.
Yeah, it's a big con.
I mean, Chuck Todd, you know, and I don't know how many of them along the way. These are not people that just go about their day. They're Beltway insiders and have been. Stephanopoulos is a Clinton operative. Come on. And they're trying to make you believe that, we just didn't see it. We were too busy hating Trump.
Why would the head of NBC be mad?
ABC, you mean?
ABC be mad at Stephanopoulos. NBC, well.
Well, because it makes, I don't know if she believes it makes ABC look bad. You know, I mean, are they going to keep selling the lie?
It's a position that the majority of Americans hold.
Right.
Is she upset because she's trying to pretend that he's a fair journalist?
Or
and
if he was going to analyze this, do they write his analysis and hand it to him like Mika does for Joe?
I'd like to think, well, he was on vacation by himself. That was the best one last week. I have no idea what's going on, but it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was the best one. He was on vacation by himself.
But that's, you know, it's a great question. What's the policy there at ABC? Because if he's going to do analysis, if somebody asked him that on the panel, should he have said no comment? Should he have read what they wrote for him? My analysis is that he will do fine. He's the most vibrant president I've ever seen.
Or were they upset because it was the first time there was even a semblance of honesty coming from him?
We can't start being honest. Why would we want to do that? You just broke our record. And also, TMZ got the scoop over ABC.
Here it is. NBC host Chuck Todd makes explosive claim. Biden cabinet secretary told him 2 years ago that Joe cannot run again. Revealed that a senior member of Joe Biden's cabinet. By the way, what is a senior member?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is there a unsenior member?
I don't know who that would be.
Told him 2 years ago they had serious concerns about the president running again. Now, he said he sees no evidence that Biden can serve 4 more years.
Mm-hmm.
This White House had to drag it out of him that they've had this neurological test. They have no credibility left on this topic. I'm not going to out the cabinet secretary, right? But I had a secretary 2 years ago, all out of the blue, asked me, do you think he's going to? He can't run again like this.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's really bad.
Let's head to you. We go to Shane in Tennessee. Shane, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi, Shane.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for calling.
Yes, sir. I was calling. I mean, I know Slow Joe's been in the media a lot and stuff like that, and I'm not seeing the coverage about the border or Bidenomics or any of that kind of stuff as much anymore. And, I mean, I know the presidential campaign's the big issue, but I was wondering about these. I mean, there's a lot of other Democrats that voted for these awful policies that are in place now, and that do you think that they wanted purposely maybe to put Joe's senility out there so that it stayed in the media to cover up the fact that they're just as bad as he is?
Well, maybe somebody that might be what they're thinking. It's not working. You cannot hide inflation. Whether the media covers inflation or not, you can't hide it. People feel it. But I actually believe we, for example, on our show, conservative media is covering it. We played 3 extended audio cuts yesterday from both the Speaker of the House, Elise Stefanik, Chip Roy, and others that when they came back, what they're going to do. And I actually believe, and Eric and I, we have no problem criticizing the Republican Party when we believe they're not marketing correctly. I think they're marketing tremendously. I think Trump politically is doing a good job right now. And the House yesterday, which is where Republicans have power, talked about the border, because the vote was yesterday, as we led the show off with in the first 15 minutes. 198 Democrats yesterday voted to say, no, you don't need to prove you're a U.S. citizen to vote in a federal election. And that was a goal of the Republicans to get that this week. And more's coming up on Title IX, which is a huge issue. Title IX is men not competing against women in sports. So they've been right on it, I think, this week. On the border, on inflation, on everything. I think they've had a good week. Now, the media, whether they're going to cover it or not, is another thing. But what you have to realize is the traditional media does not have the power anymore. They can't hide anything. People get so much of their news now from social media and the internet. People decide where they go, and that's why before the debate, you still had over 70% of America believe that Joe Biden shouldn't be president of the United States.
Yeah.
Because you can't hide it.
Absolutely.
So, no, I think that you can't control what the mainstream media is going to cover.
Thanks, Shane.
But the fact is you can't hide inflation. Republicans on the border remember, and here's the other thing, being in Texas, which is not a battleground state, so much of this advertising we're going to miss.
Yeah.
But yesterday with the Republicans getting 198 out of 203 Democrats who voted, 198, they got them on the record as of stating that no, you should not have to prove your citizenship to vote. That goes right to the border.
Yeah.
That's a voting
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
It's a voting integrity issue, and it's a border issue.
Yeah.
And Democrats voted against it. Expect the ads big time for all those congressional races. And when Schumer doesn't allow a vote on this in the Senate,
Yeah.
expect that's going to be pounded in New York. Here's another thing. I think it was yesterday or the day before. One of the biggest news items in New York is Mayor Adams now. Sanctuary cities have to go. New
Yeah.
York can no longer be a sanctuary city.
Right, right.
That's huge news.
Yep, and it's not the first time he's approached this. He was asking a judge at one point to undo the sanctuary city policy. That goes back a ways, but now officially trying to, campaigning, issuing his opinion on sanctuary cities, which, sorry, your party and you were a part of that, the building of that, and you reap what you sow.
Democratic New York City Mayor Eric Adams on Tuesday signaled support for a bipartisan legislation that would roll back a slate of sanctuary city laws currently on the books, marking a major shift in a city that has long opposed cooperation with federal immigration officials. Speaking Tuesday, Adams declared his support for an anti-sanctuary city bill proposed by members of the Common Sense Caucus, a group of New York City council members made up of both Democrats and Republicans, according to the Staten Island Advance. If passed and signed into law, the bill would ease back laws enacted by Democratic Mayor Bill de Blasio that largely prohibits New York City cops from cooperating with immigration and customs enforcement. Do you know how big of an issue that is right now?
Yeah.
Where you've got Democrats backing off on it. As we've said, part of the problem for Democrats, the real problem for Democrats, their biggest problem is not the Republicans. It's reality.
Yep, and that's where we are, to the last caller. That's exactly how I'd answer your question, is that reality doesn't go away. As you mentioned, Gary, inflation doesn't go away. Those things that are hitting people hard, and that was what was driving numbers before the entire debate debacle. Those are big drivers. Those are the issues. And when the issues are not in the abstract, they are the reality that we face every single day, then it doesn't matter what the media covers because people are living it. It's part of their life. And it changes hearts and minds. And that's exactly what you have going on at the basis of this election cycle. To what extent, again, can only be measured in November. But it's not off. If ABC's not covering that because they're angry at their own Stephanopoulos, it doesn't mean that it's out of the minds of the public. They're living it every day.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We have a treat of an audio cut coming up following the bottom of the hour. It involves Eric Swalwell, so you want to hear it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about it, but it was really good. I'll just say that it was the House yesterday held a hearing on government and censorship.
Yeah, right.
And our colleague, his show is syndicated by our company.
Mm-hmm.
He's a part of our company, Ben Shapiro. Well, Swalwell started asking him questions, nothing to do with censorship, just completely off the top.
Right.
And it was really, really good.
Yeah. Not for Swalwell, but.
No, not for Swalwell. Yeah. But getting back to the last caller and, the issues out there, it is. Eric Adams declares support for rollback of New York's sanctuary city laws. I think the previous administration made a big mistake, Adams said, referring to de Blasio. I think we need to correct that aspect of it. Think about it.
Yeah.
New York City now, the push is, and they may have the support to roll back sanctuary city laws in New York City. The only reason it's happening, that is happening, because of Governor Abbott in Texas.
Yep.
That's why that's happening. And I will also give Joe Biden credit because Joe Biden was also flying people in there, but it became news.
Yeah, the media took note of it when Abbott was doing it. Yep.
And the reason is because Democrats supported sanctuary cities when it was an abstract concept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't affect us.
Right.
So we can be for it.
Right.
Now it affects us. Now it's costing us. Now we have to pay.
Yeah.
We have to pay for the consequences of our decision. We can't have that. Somebody else has to pay. We should be able to make any decision we want, but we should never be affected by the consequences of that decision.
No.
This is where you get into the childishness of liberalism right there. We're for something unless we have to pay for it. We're only for something if somebody else pays for it.
Yeah, exactly. If we can live in the delusional mindset that it doesn't affect us, we're for it.
Hey, let's drop some acid, live in a fantasy bizarro world.
Yeah, why not?
And then get upset.
Yeah.
When what do they call it? When the trip is done.
Yeah,
I forgot what you call it. It's a trip when you're doing acid.
Yeah.
We're done with the trip. Now reality hits. Well, we can't be for this. Hey, we were tripping before.
Right.
Man, everybody's on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Polling better than Biden. Eric and Gary on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen to our show in podcast form on our app whenever you choose.
Mm-hmm. And thank you.
All right, so over the last couple of weeks, it seems as if the Democrats and Project 2025 had come up as a talking point against Trump until Trump said, I got nothing to do with that. Did you see the Heritage Foundation came out and said Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025?
Yeah.
And we had said when we first, I forgot, well, we were on vacation last week, so I think we probably hit it because it really became big last week. It was almost as if, and how I viewed it is, I had heard of it, and I knew the Heritage Foundation had put something together. I hadn't read it.
Right.
Because think tanks do that constantly. Mm-hmm. They're constantly putting out papers. But it was, I sat there and I went, okay, I see why they're doing it, because you and I go back to Jade Helm 15. Remember that?
And, right.
And it's like, if you do that, Project 2025, oh, my God, what type of conspiracy theory is this to take over the entire government and enslave the people? And whatever happened to remember, what was the conspiracy theory? Was that Jade Helm 13 about the boxcars that were already preloaded with thousands of body bags to put all the people that were to be executed in the United States? Was that part of Jade Helm 15, or was that another one?
I think that was an episode of the Jesse Ventura Show. You tell me what it was.
Well, that's how you argue a conspiracy theory.
You tell me if it's a conspiracy theory.
Right.
You don't know, do you?
But I remember thinking, well, that's a Heritage Foundation thing. And I said, Heritage Foundation, yeah, they're conservative, but they're for the most part, they're pretty common sense. Yeah. And I also went back to the Amero, because the Amero was to me, that was the ultimate conspiracy theory. It was even better than Jade Helm 15.
Right.
Because the Amero was, all right, they're trying to force a currency on the United States. And the conspiracy is we're going to have to share. And by the way, they got it all set to go. The public's not going to be involved in this whatsoever. There's going to be a new currency shared between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. It's called the Amero. Here it is. See, they've even got coins minted, and they show a picture of like the Amero, and it was. I heard it could be wrong, but I heard the globalists actually have already done it, and they call it Bitcoin. That could be false, but that's what I heard. And, with the entire thing of the Amero, and I'll never forget my buddy calling me and saying, have you heard about this Amero? My daughter's worried about it. Could you? I go, oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a conspiracy theory. It's a Canadian think tank.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a secret American conspiracy theory.
Right.
I'm trying to think of what Canadian think tank it was. Let me just see here. It was the same one that always does the stuff on the healthcare system. Fraser Institute, I believe it was.
Okay.
I think it was the Fraser Institute that did and said, okay, with the euro being around, and by that time the euro had been around for 20 years.
Right. And
it was like, okay, is it going to work there and would it work here?
Right.
And I believe they came to the conclusion, no, it would not. But for the sake of promoting it, they came up and had a coin, a Mero, whatever. Yeah. And so it was like, oh, man. It was pretty entertaining, though.
It was.
But when the Democrats started pounding Trump, Project 2025, when I heard that, I went, wow, that's perfect, because it sounds like a conspiracy theory, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a secret conspiracy theory out there.
Right.
No, it's a think tank saying, here's what we want the Republicans to do.
Right.
Doesn't say they're going to do it.
Right.
This is what we'd like for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ben Shapiro is before the House yesterday to testify on, government using social media or coercing social media to censor conservative outlets and to stop advertising from going to conservative outlets. Right. So that's why he was there. Well, Swalwell would have none of it, just change the topic to something else. So here's part of this back and forth. Here we go.
You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the...
And by the way, and that's why, because I wonder, why am I talking about immigration?
Yeah, right.
I'm here to talk censorship.
Right.
But he doesn't want to talk about... Swalwell doesn't want to talk about that at all, but here they continue it here.
The abortion pill, that's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure. I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
banning same-sex marriage. What about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I am perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is.
By the way, they've come out, the Heritage Foundation. Every point that Swalwell brought up, they said is not in Project 2025.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't even exist.
Right.
We don't even, that how they're framing it doesn't exist in the actual Project 2025.
Right.
Continuing here.
I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a seventh grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to Alvin Bragg.
And then he goes on to he completely ignores Shapiro at that point and brings up another topic. It was the creators of Project 2025. I'll find it here just so people know it. But on the abortion pill and stuff like that, it's like, no, we don't have a comment on it.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing, is the fact that they thought that by just saying Project 2025, they could throw a conspiracy theory, a secret plan by Republicans out there and Trump. It's like, what are you talking about? And then they have to lie about what's in the actual Project 2025, which is just a proposal. It's ideas being thrown out by a think tank.
Right.
And so this is where but that, by the way, that to me was the last gasp. Was Swalwell or not, trying to use it yesterday.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about Project 2025.
Nope. You ask the average person, it's not even at the top of the mind. They don't even know what it is. And the left has to make something up about it because they fear a think tank that opens the conversation to different ideas than those that they adhere to. It's pretty simple equation. And they can it's just like the Georgia election law and how many different things that they've lied about over the years. And they have to push this lie into people's minds in order to win, which they're not going to win.
Project 2025 put this out the other day. We are not affiliated with former President Trump. We are a coalition of more than 100 conservative groups advocating policy and personal recommendations. They were accused by the Democrats of a complete ban on abortions without exceptions. False. Mandate for leadership calls for the government to comply with laws that prevent federal funding of abortion. It also calls for federal support for alternatives to abortion, including adoption. Ban contraceptives. False. Mandate for leadership says nothing about banning or restricting contraceptions. So what they do is they go to, like me, if you ask me, well, what do you think about this in Project 2025? I haven't read what is it? I've heard the short version's 140 pages, the long version 900. It's a policy by a think tank. This isn't the official platform of Republicans or Donald Trump, and that's what they were attempting to promote. So even with Ben Shapiro, they threw questions at him, claiming that was in, Project 2025, and what does he think about it? Mm-hmm. And those aren't in Project 2025.
Yeah. Again, just make it up as you go along. Put all these things, throw everything you can into it. And the liberals are counting on people to be ignorant about it.
And it says, raise the retirement age that he brought up. Mm-hmm. False. Raising the retirement age, nowhere advocated in Mandate for Leadership. Cut Social Security. False. Mandate for Leadership does not advocate cutting Social Security.
Right.
And just goes through, all the different things that Democrats have been saying about it, which doesn't exist. I mean, and they go on and on and on and on. Teach Christian religious beliefs in public schools. False. Mandate for Leadership advocates for all educational opportunities and for parental rights in education.
Yeah.
And they go through everything.
Yeah.
So Swalwell, again, line.
Well,
in order to change the topic.
Yep. And staying away from the whole, censorship thing, of course.
Right. Well, and I think, though, he should have, end marriage equality. False. The legal recognition of same-sex marriage is not even discussed in Mandate for Leadership.
Yep.
So everything that he brought up is false.
Right.
Not in Project 2025. They thought just by saying it and throwing it out, they wouldn't be fact-checked, but they're being fact-checked.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, the House of Representatives approved a bill on Wednesday aimed at ensuring only American citizens vote in federal elections after debating the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act on the House floor, which was pushed by House Speaker Mike Johnson and Representative Chip Roy. It was passed by a final vote of 221 to 198. 5 Democrats voted in favor of the measure.
Yeah.
198 Democrats voted for federal elections, not having to prove you are an American citizen.
Yeah. That's incredible, which, by the way, was part of the point of the Republicans.
Right.
Get them on record.
Oh, yeah, that was the point.
Yeah.
They know it's not going to pass the Senate.
Right.
Or it may not even get introduced in the Senate.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Get up, get that first cup of coffee in you, huh? Man, oh, man. Did you see in Western New York, 4 tornadoes?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. 4 tornadoes, like in the Buffalo area.
Mm.
One, did you see the one? I mean, people are getting film of it. The one ripped this roof right off a house. It was like, whoa, man.
Wow.
So they don't get many of those up there.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's got to be rare, very rare.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
We know in Texas there are still a lot of people without power.
Yeah.
Because of the hurricane. But in California, there is no hurricane to worry about. But yesterday, the California Independent Systems Operator told customers to be prepared to conserve energy as forecasts of extreme heat this week are set to raise power demand and constrain the grid. If the events linger for days, it may overtax generators and cause outages. The grid operator expects higher electricity demand today, with today being the hottest day this week. And things are only going to get worse as we need more electricity, and the electricity isn't there.
Right.
You saw the other problem is that so many people, there's so many solar panels there that when the solar panels are all working, there's nowhere for the electricity. They don't use the electricity. The electricity is wasted. So Gavin Newsom's talking about we need to have more. So they're building huge, whatever. I don't know what type of batteries they are. I'm assuming some type of lithium-ion batteries they're building to store the power during the day. That's not going to cost much, is it?
No, listen, $12 trillion. That's what we think we can do it for.
California, you're going to have to make a choice. Big batteries or reparations.
Right.
You can't have both. Well, honestly, you can't have one.
Can't have either.
And this is interesting. Chris Cillizza, the columnist, writing this yesterday. I actually think the Clooney op-ed piece is very important. Not because a liberal celebrity is telling Joe Biden to step aside, but rather because Clooney writes about witnessing Biden in bad shape at a fundraiser weeks before the debate, which totally undermines the post-debate Biden spin. Presumably, Biden wasn't sick the night at the fundraiser, or wasn't badly prepared by staff, or didn't have bad makeup on, or wasn't distracted by Donald Trump yelling. What Clooney reveals is that this wasn't just one bad night. And he isn't a member of the media who was out to get Biden, which has also been a ridiculous claim. He's a giant Democrat who has in the past been a big supporter of Biden. He has no reason to lie about what he saw. First response. But why didn't he say something then instead of raising $10 million and not saying a peep?
Right.
Because they
held on to that?
Right, because they didn't care. They didn't care.
Well, look, you just think that, okay, we'll just we'll close our eyes. We won't tell anybody about it. And then the debate happens, and it's like, oh. And they think they're always trying to be the superhero. They're always trying to be, oh, well, I guess it's time to put my Batman costume on again. And go to the New York Times. Did he write it as Batman? Please tell me he wrote it wearing a Batman costume. And because now in my mind, I'm only going to picture him writing that whole thing while wearing a Batman costume. And they think, he thinks he's going to save the world. Well, I guess I have to do this now. I have to do the unimaginable. You mean tell the truth? That's very imaginable. I've seen it done. Weeks ago, you had no interest in telling the truth. None. Why? Why? These fakes believe, again, that I guess they just don't see or they don't care that they're outing themselves. Their lies that they know what they have seen. You certainly can't tell me that with George Stephanopoulos or any of the Beltway insiders, and now Chuck Todd, you guys knew this all along. We knew it.
We knew it.
We saw it.
The public knew it.
And you guys know everybody inside the Beltway. Of course you knew it. Stephanopoulos is a Clinton operative. Of course he knew it. And you don't say it.
Reading here, from National Review, the George Clooney op-ed is a scandal. The country's future is too important to leave in the hands of the star from dusk till dawn.
But, from the other side of it,
gosh,
if you're Biden, your top Hollywood fundraiser, essentially, I mean, in terms of, the attention that they got that night, just a few weeks after the big night, is saying get out. That's chaos. And it's indicative of the scrambling and the desperation that's going on right now behind the scenes that everybody knows. This isn't going to affect George Clooney. I say that, but actually, I do wonder if Biden stays in the race and he loses bigly to Trump, then are you going to hear, that night and in the days after the election? Oh, if it weren't for people like George Clooney and Stephanopoulos, he would have won. Are they going to try and make that insane argument? Who was it that kept saying, if you guys will quit talking about inflation, inflation will stop.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps talking about inflation. That's why it's happening.
What do they call it? Media-driven inflation.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that
Yeah.
one? What a load of
But I
horse
can see
manure.
them saying, I can see them trying to use that excuse post-election if Biden stays in. Well, he would have won. But too many people like George Clooney had to run their mouth. If it weren't for George Clooney in his Batman costume. And that's because that's their playbook.
The story that got to me yesterday, because we're talking about how, the media is covering everything. I saw this one and I was like, stop it. We conservatives need to stop it. But Washington Examiner, the Restoring America column, Mark Judge wrote it, recovering from journalism crisis. Reporters need to learn to apologize. 2 weeks ago, Georgetown University held a symposium about the state of journalism. When asked about the main problem facing the press, Eric Wemple, a media critic at the Washington Post, came up with a surprisingly compelling and honest answer. Journalists need to learn how to apologize when they make mistakes. News organizations, when they put these big stories, they put their soul into these pieces. And when they turn out to be blanked up, they can never, ever, it takes them forever to come to grips with it. So people on the outside say, why can't you just admit that this is wrong? No, we sweated over this. We edited it 5 times. We went through 15 layers. We lawyered it. There is an emotional attachment to the work. When the news organizations drag their heels, take the fake gang rape story with Rolling Stone at UVA, it took them months or years to admit it was false. They finally had to commission an investigation. I think that this is what is common to most media crisis. It's not just the first mistake. It's the refusal, the stubborn resistance to change or to correct. Editors will say, when we make a mistake, we'll correct it, but that's not often the case. And he writes here, Wemple has hit on something profound. The media are not trusted, and all the conferences and articles in the world are not going to help them out of their hole. What will help is if the media industry learns to do what it once did with some honor, apologize for mistakes. I've never seen an article get it's so wrong as to what's wrong with the media today.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, this is so wrong. And we saw this you and I saw this after the Mueller report. Well, hopefully these journalists will learn and they'll go back to the journalistic. They're not damn journalists.
They're activists.
They're political activists. They don't care. There is no shame.
No shame whatsoever.
Right. There is no shame. They only care about, did it work for this length of time? Now, a lot of the political activists are questioning whether they did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But still, the journalists aren't covering this going, we got this wrong about Biden. Or if they're saying we got this wrong about Biden and we only figured it out during the debate that he does not have the cognitive abilities, that's crazy.
And if there are a few of them making the claim, well, we were lied to. Remember it was 2 or 3 reporters at the New York Times that felt like they got burned from Hillary Clinton and the Clintons?
Yeah.
They lied to us. We had no idea they were lying to us. You should have. You should have known. You know how you know Hillary Clinton is lying to you? Her mouth is moving.
But this is from the Washington Examiner, a conservative paper. Guys and gals, open your eyes.
Yeah.
Open your ears.
Make apologies. You expect them to make... They don't care.
Right.
If they cared, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing in the first place.
When the problem with this is the public, 70% of the public, over 70% of the public has known what the media claims. Oh, we didn't know this. This debate, really bad.
We've been lied to.
What
We've been lied to.
I can't believe this. Can you believe the aides? It was obvious.
Yeah.
Well, we were just looking for the evidence. We didn't see the evidence. Why did the public? Oh, don't get into that area. Why the public knew it and we didn't. We can't really address that.
Right.
Everything's a load of crap.
Right. Yeah. They totally, by the way, they do leave out the fact that the people on the right have been saying this, and many people in the public, as you point out, have been saying this for a long time. They've left that part out of the discussion and acknowledging that we were right, because it's not hard to see. Yeah, to imply that to say that they need to learn to apologize. Remember after the 2016 election, for about 20 minutes, maybe the so-called journalists, maybe we need to put some overalls on and go into the heartland. Then they come back from a 4-martini lunch an hour later going, we're never going to do that. We don't care.
You got to use the right lingo, though. As you said, we got to put on our overall, our work boots, our work pants, our work shirt, our hard hat, right, and take a lunch pail and bring it to work every day.
Yeah.
It's like, let's totally BS everyone.
Yeah. And they honestly, again, as you point out, they're living in whatever gets them to this point. Whatever didn't work yesterday, it's beyond the point. They move on. If you want to talk about learning how to move on from something, from defeat, these liberal activists are very good at that. They just leave it behind. They get defeated all the time, and it doesn't matter. They don't care. They're not going to apologize. They're not going to correct themselves. They're not going to issue a correction. It's not going to happen. They're going to find a new tactic that they believe will work.
Yeah, but for God's sakes, conservatives, stop being so naive.
Yeah.
Or ignorant.
It's not
naive, ignorant, whatever. They're not going to apologize unless the upper management believes this is costing them their bottom line on advertising.
Yeah.
Then they might be forced to do it, or the evidence is so overwhelming that readership starts dropping, which it has anyway.
If you want to look at real journalists like Barry Weiss, she's issued her mea culpa. So that's a real journalist. Who you're talking about here in the Washington Examiner, they're not real journalists. They're activists.
Yeah.
And that's what you see. You know when someone's being honest with you. And you know when someone is an activist and you know what their intent is. You know what their game is. It's pretty easy to see. Don't expect anything less from them, anything more from them.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Once a roadside inspection is completed, the officer will close it out, which involves the officer writing or typing up the report. The more the officer found during the inspection, the longer this will take. If violations were discovered, most officers, as a courtesy, will explain the violations to the driver. If there were any out-of-service violations, the officer will normally explain what must be done to get the out-of-service order lifted. Drivers need to be very attentive during this part of the inspection. The driver also needs to read and understand the complete inspection report. After receiving the inspection report, the driver has 24 hours to get the roadside inspection report to the motor carrier. If the driver will not be returning to a company facility within the next 24 hours, the driver needs to know to get it on the way to you via email, mail, or fax within 24 hours. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The more I read, the more I'm just shaking my head. This is, again, from the Washington Examiner. Senator Bernie Sanders has suggested Biden turn off the teleprompter and instead interact directly with voters to show he is mentally fit to be president. Sanders also contended that Biden needs to have more spontaneous moments to prove to voters that he has the mental capacity to continue his job as president. Well, one wonders if it's so simple why they haven't done that.
I think they should. What are they waiting for?
Wow, what a novel idea.
Yeah. No, let's do that. In fact, I suggest that we do the Lester Holt NBC interview live with no commercial interruption. Make it a full 1 hour. Please?
Oh, Bernie, you have to then wonder that's such common sense advice.
Why aren't they
doing that?
Yeah,
we just can't figure this out.
I mean, it seems so simple. It's just so obvious.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We were on just a different topic here, but it all relates.
Yeah,
we're just talking about movies and stuff bombing in Hollywood, and this is something that Disney, for example, has found out, and you and I were sitting here talking about all these great films bombing because people perceive that they have part of the problem, not all of the problem. Part of the problem, people perceive they have an agenda, and then if you've ever seen the business model of like Hallmark or I forgot the other one.
It's not GAC. What is the other?
GAC.
Is it GAC?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
GAC.
Yeah, where they're just doing the family movies now, and it's just the family-friendly movies, I guess.
And they're very cheap to make these films.
Yeah.
There's nothing controversial. There's a lot of drinking of coffee and hot chocolate and people hugging and kissing. No sex.
Right. Right.
No sex, no no agenda.
Right.
Just small town normal life that people can watch and go, there's a comfort zone to this here, and I can just veg out and watch it.
And I didn't know this, but my wife came across them and watches them on YouTube. And because we have the commercial-free subscription premium on YouTube, she can sit and watch a lot of these right there on YouTube, and it's the same idea. There's no agenda. It's very simple. It's a very simple storyline. What Hollywood forgets, I think there's indication that they're coming around. I don't know to what extent, but there's a few indicators that they're coming around to understanding what people want out of movies, what they want out of entertainment. And quite often it's just an escape, because right now you could say, especially with social media and everything else going a million miles an hour, I loved watching my grandkids and their friends when we were at the beach last week watch Forrest Gump. So I'm kind of standing in the kitchen saying Forrest Gump's lines in Forrest Gump's voice right before he says them. The point where he asks Jenny to marry him. But I know what love is, and I get a few laughs out of the audience, the live audience, my grandkids. But I loved that they were taking that time, all of them sitting in the same room and watching that movie on the same screen. They weren't on social media. It always has been escapism. And it comes in different forms. Sometimes it's Tom Cruise doing impossible stunts. And it's like, whoa. I'll go back and watch all the Mission Impossible movies. And the Top Gun 2 I've seen, I don't know how many times now. But also certain stand-up comedy, some that I love to watch. If you're looking for clean comedy, Nate Bargatze, Dusty Slay, all of these clean comedians. And sometimes it's a not so clean comedian. John Mulaney is one of my favorites. It's not so clean, but you look at the reason that you sit down and you want that entertainment. Alan and I, our producer Alan and I, love to have the discussion of what's on Netflix, and things that I like. My wife doesn't necessarily like the true crime dramas, but my dad was a cop. I have an interest in law enforcement. And to me, like cold case files and those things, and true crime dramas, and I think Netflix has really found something there. I'm not always in the mood for it, but it is sometimes that type of escapism that takes you away. But sometimes it's also just the simple thing, including the content creators on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, the content creators. I was watching the other day.
They're just great.
And I had to stop watching it because I couldn't handle it any longer. It wasn't scary in the traditional form, but it was simple. And I don't know, just came up in shuffle. It was the radio and television tower guys that climb these towers 2,000 feet. One guy, 1,900 feet.
Yeah.
This TV tower was, and he's climbing to the top of it, and they're going into, the old TV towers, they might be thicker at the bottom and thinner, but now they're this exact same size. It gets very slippery at the top, and you have these rungs, and they're holding on. I mean, they got the cable and everything, but they're up there alone, and I'm thinking, what's the wind speed up there? I mean, but it was, it's just something that's so fascinating that you don't see, and someone said, hey, let's make a YouTube video out of it. But it's something, you're learning something every day.
Exactly.
But when they kept looking down from one perspective, I flew with the Thunderbirds. I have no problem. I mean, we did everything that they did in the show, including taking the 9Gs. I had a G suit on. No fear of that whatsoever.
Right.
I went up the next year in another acrobatic plane and did that. Flew with my father when I was young. But I can't stand heights.
Yeah,
I have no problem flying commercial airliners.
Right.
I've never flown in a helicopter yet, but you know what scares the daylights out of me is ski lift. sitting there and hanging off the ski lift, and you're looking at that little piece of metal holding onto the cable. And for some reason, I always view that, my engineering self going, that's not strong enough. And my legs are hanging down, and I hate that. Or going to the side of the building, I absolutely hate that. I'm like, well, they go, what do you fear of? And I go, I guess ledges.
For me, it's the side of a building that I'm not familiar with. I can literally run around on my own roof. I used to have a fear of heights. I don't know where it stopped, but but if I'm on a roof I'm not familiar with, especially a flat roof, a tall building that's much taller than my house, and I were to look, or even watch a video of someone looking over the edge, it just makes my stomach just go upside down, man. It's crazy.
Same with me.
But for the most part, I don't have a problem with it. It's just one of those that looks like, oh my gosh, this is extremely dangerous.
I've worked in a few skyscrapers, and I'm fine if I can be 5 feet from the window. I'm fine. If I go right up to the window and look over, it's like, oh, there's where it hits.
Yeah.
But we're just talking about different content, that's out there. It's like, it's something that's interesting. That's all I want to keep my attention. Something different. I learned something. It's a unique experience from somebody, and I want to see that in the movies. But you said to me the other day, you just said, I saw the trailer for that movie Twisters. Seems interesting, because the first Twister, it was an exciting action film with the only agenda was the other storm watchers were extremely stupid human beings.
Right.
I mean, except for that agenda, don't be a stupid storm watcher.
Right. Exactly.
It was a great movie. There was interpersonal relationships.
It was really well done. It was well directed. The CGI was good.
And then having Eddie and Alex at the end do Respect the Wind.
Yeah.
So you go out with an Eddie Van Halen, guitar lick.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. But I saw the trailer too for Twisters, and I went, well, I've already, and then I started watching, the trailer a little bit more intently and go, well, maybe. And it was a couple days later I come in and you go, that Twister movie, I saw the trailer.
Yeah, Twister's the new one.
Yeah,
the trailer looks great, and it's a movie that I would like to go actually see in a theater on a big screen. But and there's indications. I was just reading that DreamWorks is planning a Shrek 5. I quite honestly didn't know there was a Shrek 3 or 4. My kids are old now, and so I haven't been keeping up with the entire franchise of Shrek. But I do follow the business model of those movies and how much money the actors can make off of animation. Mike Myers from Shrek and Eddie Murphy, Hotel Transylvania when it comes to Adam Sandler, and all these comedians and actors who make a ton of movie off of animation. Jack Black with Kung Fu Panda. And to me, that's fascinating. And the movie itself, actually, when you stop down, if my grandkids are over at the house and they're watching an animation and I stop down and watch it, it's actually, a lot of it can be very entertaining. When it's the stuff where they're just the characters being silly or whatever. Despicable Me with one of my grandkids she was just over the moon about that movie. And, it can be, those moments can be fun. They can be funny. And when Hollywood remembers that, then I think you get that successful point. That's where, in fact, Tom Cruise posted on social media the other night. He was at the premiere for Twisters. And he's not in the movie. He was just hanging out, watching it with a friend. One of the guys from Top Gun 2 is in Twisters. And so they were, and so he posted that on social media, just hanging out with friends, watching a movie, And the point is that when Hollywood remembers that it's escapism, then we love it. Mm-hmm. But when you start attaching things, this is what they found out when the Discovery Group came in and they were looking at, all of these things that were wrong with all their products. They were looking at certain things of, what can work and what can't. They were looking at movies that were already complete that won't ever see the light. They made decisions saying This won't see the light of day. We're going to shelve this forever, because the problem is you start spoiling the audience, and the audience gets way too fickle. We start turning it off too soon. If it gets to streaming and we're 10 minutes in and it's part of our monthly streaming package and we're 10 minutes in, it's like, nah, this is no good. Mm-hmm. Click, we're out. You can't get everybody back to the theater. But if you make something that's good, that's true escapism, then people will watch it word of mouth. I think Top Gun 2 is a great example of that, where it's like, oh, man, this is the movie. You want to sit down, grab some popcorn, and you want to share it.
I bought that.
Yeah, I did too.
And one of the reasons I only recently got my new Sonos home theater system.
Yeah.
Where you can control just everything on it.
Right.
And I just want it. It's the scenes where they may be in the office and the jets are just flying around. And I found parts of that movie where it's basically they'd be in an office sitting, you can hear the jets, but in the surround sound, you can hear the jets going around in a circle.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff where you just go, yeah,
they put the work in. And that's what, that's, if Hollywood remembers that, then Hollywood can survive. Well, they're becoming less relevant because they're trying to be preachy. They're trying to, put other messages in. I'm not saying messages don't work in entertainment. I mean, we've seen it. Bob Dylan made a career out of it. There's certain, during certain eras, there was certain messages that were in. I mean, the TV show MASH was a message really about Vietnam, not the Korean War. And it was, all of these things were underlying, but the thing was, they didn't always come off as preachy. It was, hey, this is what we're doing, and people either bought it or they didn't.
Well, there's a message in Top Gun.
Yeah.
But it's a message that people can relate to.
Right.
That most people relate to. The other one I was thinking, because I never saw the first, or the originals, whatever, I don't know how many there were, but the new Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
But you know something, with Eddie Murphy, for me, it was, I think, 2016. No, it was probably 2019 or 2020 when I saw it during COVID. When I saw the movie he did in 2016, Mr. Church.
Oh, great movie.
What a
great movie.
Isn't that a great movie?
Great movie.
That's one of the...
Great movie.
That's the best Eddie Murphy movie ever.
Yeah, I would say,
Absolutely.
if you had to pick one, watch that. Beverly Hills Cop 1, though, is, to me, one I can watch all day long.
Oh, yeah. But I never went to the movie theater. I enjoyed that afterwards.
Right,
but when I saw,
right.
Really because of Mr. Church, which is it's a more serious movie. Not that there aren't entertaining moments to it, but it is not. It is some people might say it's even a chick flick.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was great.
But I think it's the best stuff he's done, which made me consider, okay, Beverly Hills Cop. I will say this. I did try to watch a few minutes last Christmas of Candy Cane Lane. I'm like, okay, with Eddie Murphy. I'm like, maybe next Christmas I'll try it.
It may depend on the mood.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow, maybe a movie someday will be made on everything that we're going through right now.
It's going to have to be a long series. Yeah, somebody called Dick Wolf. He needs to write another decades-long saga.
It would have to be.
It would have to be longer than
Law,
and Order.
Lawfare and Disorder.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
That's it, Lawfare and Disorder.
Law and Order COPD. There we go.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.